today I'm doing my monthly manga reading log for March. I read 105 volumes plus an additional 100 chapters of a manhwa webtoon series not yet put into volumes, and all of these covered 17 series. So I'm going to go through and talk about each series. There will be timestamps, so if I'm talking about a series that you're not interested in, you can feel free to skip to a different section. And after going through my March reads, I'll share some of the series I'm planning to read in April. And I'll have a link below to my anime list profile where I track all the manga I read and anime I watch with my ratings for each one, and a link to my Instagram account. I pretty consistently share my current reads in my stories as well as my thoughts as I'm reading them. So here are my reads for March. So first was Jujutsu Kaisen. I read volumes 14 to 22, and then the next chapters that will make up volumes 23 and into volume 24. This is a supernatural shonen action series. So after watching the anime and reading volumes 8 to 13 in February, I continued reading in the Shonen Jump app until I was caught up, and I'm really happy I was able to make it just about to the latest chapters before seeing any spoilers. I buddy read this with my friend Kat, so it was really fun to react to panels we liked and discuss plot points as we went along. My favorite section of the story are the two arcs that cover volumes 8 to 16. Really action-packed, gripping, some really tragic and devastating moments. Really looking forward to the second season of the anime that should be covering those arcs. I haven't been as crazy about the most recent Culling Game arc. There have been some interesting developments and a few fight scenes that were pretty cool, but overall it kind of started feeling like a different series, as if a few of the main characters from JJK were dropped into different shonen series, and a lot of the new characters have been just kind of lacking in depth, like they were just meant to be introduced and defeated within a few chapters, so they're just kind of obnoxious and then done with. But that being said, I'm still really enjoying the series, and the most recent few chapters have had some major developments, so I'm really invested in where things are going to go from here, especially with the series coming to an end soon later this year. Next, I have two fanzines. Tiger Cub by Lightning Strikes Art. I read both volumes 1 and 2 of this Jujutsu Kaisen alternate universe fanzine, and I absolutely loved these little wholesome and sweet mini stories that show the JJK characters in a happier setting. Mixed in with the chapters are pages here and there with just illustrations, which are a real treat, considering the artist could have sold those illustrations individually as prints, but included them in these volumes. Just super cute. This artist has an account on Instagram where they share little snippets of the chapters and their art, so I definitely recommend checking them out. But these fanzines are perfect if you like JJK and you need to be healed a bit with some wholesome, happy content after the latest developments in the story. I also read Orange. I read volumes 1 to 7, so including volume 6 Future and volume 7 To You, Dear One. This was a buddy read I did with Bizarre Individual, and I really enjoyed seeing his reactions to things as we read and discussing the volumes as we completed each one. But Orange is a shoujo high school romance series with tragedy and sci-fi elements. It follows a friend group who welcomes in a new transfer student, and the main girl receives a letter from her future self warning her to do things differently to save their friend who isn't with them in the future and to avoid having those regrets. So this was my first read of Orange, but I have watched the anime a few times and I cry every time I watch it. I really love Suwa and Kakeru. Their friendship is so heartwarming and makes me wish this was more of a friendship story than a romance. There are a few things about the story that bug me quite a bit. The main two issues I have, I don't really know how to share them without saying spoilers, so I'll just say it has to do with some of the decisions and actions of the adults. But then in addition to those, I just don't really like Naho at all. I feel like she's a really weak protagonist. And then the premise for the time-traveling letters is really cheesy, but overall, I do like this series, and I'm glad I finally got around to reading it, as it has been on my TBR for a while. Next, I read Natsume to Natsume. I read Volume 2. This is a comedy slice-of-life shoujo series that follows a sweet boy who has a scary face and his childhood friend who is a pretty and kind girl. I had read Volume 1 in January, so I was happy to find Volume 2 to continue this read. There weren't any huge developments, but I just really enjoy this series because I love wholesome stories about misunderstood characters who, deep down, are soft and just absolute sweethearts. But I wanted to give a little shout out to my friend Briar. She had a free month trial of Azuki, which is a digital manga reading site that she didn't need and let me use it. So I was able to read this series and a few others that I'll get to later in the log. So thanks again. Something's Wrong with Us. I read volumes 12 and 13. This is a josei drama romance series that follows the dramatic and rocky relationship of two wagashi makers who were friends as children but have had serious issues come between them. I love this series and every new volume is a treat. And of course, I enjoyed this newest volume. Almost every volume ends on a cliffhanger and I'm always shocked by the plot twists. So I'm really looking forward to getting the conclusion of the series in another 3 volumes. I have a group chat with a few of my friends who are also reading this series, and I love when each new volume releases, seeing everyone's thoughts and reactions as we each get our copies and find out what happens next. Dengeki Daisy, I read volumes 1 to 16. This is a shoujo romance series with good comedy as well as drama, action, suspense, tragedy. I went into this series knowing only this basic premise. A girl's older brother dies and leaves a phone with her with a contact inside named Daisy, who will step in his place to encourage her and look out for her. So while yes, this is the backbone of the story, there's so much more that I wasn't expecting. There are some silly and cheesy moments, but there are sections that are dark and have a more mature feel. Some absolutely devastating scenes that had me sobbing. I loved the ending, very moving, satisfying. I liked the art style. I liked that all the characters had good backstories and good character development. And I appreciate that the female lead, even though she's a high schooler, is a very strong character. So I definitely recommend this to anyone looking for a more serious shoujo that still has good comedy and romance. But the series does have an age gap romance, so if that bothers you, probably best to skip this one. But this is my friend Summer's top favorite manga series. I was pretty confident I would like it because we have very similar taste, but I was happily surprised at how much I liked it and how much it made me cry. So I'm really glad we were able to buddy read it together. I also read QQ Sweeper, which is by the same mangaka as Dengeki Daisy. I read volumes 1 to 3. This is a supernatural shoujo series that follows 2 high schoolers, a girl who has no family or a place to stay, and an unsocial boy who has a passion for cleaning. I don't want to get into the premise too much since it's only 3 volumes, but it really reminded me of a shoujo version of Jujutsu Kaisen. In this, negative emotions are turned into dirty creatures like bugs, and then there are people called sweepers who go into the hearts of people to cleanse them of these creatures. But the main boy in the story reminds me a lot of Megami from Jujutsu Kaisen, and the girl has an interesting backstory, but in the 3 volumes, I didn't really form a solid opinion of her yet. And so even though this is technically completed at 3 volumes, it is basically an introduction that continues in the series Queen's Quality. I've heard a lot of good things about Queen's Quality, so I am planning to read it when I'm back in the mood for a supernatural series, so I'll be looking forward to learning more about the characters. In March, I also read Windbreaker. This is an ongoing manhwa series that has over 400 chapters on Webtoon, with 22 physical volumes covering the first 2 seasons and into the 3rd season, with the remaining 100 or so chapters finishing season 3 and into season 4, covering about another 7 or 8 volumes. But this is a sports series about cycling. There are different crews of bikers, and the story follows a group of high schoolers who form a crew and consider entering a big upcoming competition for amateur crews. The cast is really interesting. Kids from different backgrounds with different economic statuses, each with very different family dynamics. Some of the boys have delinquent backgrounds and violent tendencies, so unsurprisingly, there are some rough scenes where the guys from different crews will clash with each other outside of races. But I got really sucked into the story. It's really gripping. It's really binge-worthy. The characters are really well written. The antagonists are absolutely terrible, hateable people. So there were sections of the story I was literally shaking because of how upset I was at what was happening and the suffering people had to go through. I really like the art style. I really like the way motion is depicted for every cycling scene. My favorite characters are Vinny and Dom, so I'm really invested in the latest developments. From what I've heard, this series is going to be concluding at the end of season 4. So really looking forward to seeing how all the loose ends are going to be tied up and how this story will be wrapped up. But big thanks to my friend Selene, who buddy read this with me after pressuring me and wearing me down to finally read this series. Next, The Walls Between Us. This was another read with my Azuki trial membership. I read volumes 1 and 2. This is a completed 7-volume shoujo high school romance series that follows 2 childhood friends who are neighbors. She mentions to him that her friends are all dating, and he says something along the lines of, "I guess I can go out with you if you want a boyfriend so bad." So she's determined not to start liking him because she feels like he's being condescending. This series was okay, but just very typical and predictable and kind of cheesy. There was a kavedan on like every other page. I like kavedans, but that was way too many. The main girl was really bratty, and after the first 2 volumes, I just wasn't invested in the relationship or in the love rival that was introduced. It definitely wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, but there are just so many better high school romance series I'd recommend over this one. Another Azuki Trial membership read was My Sweet Girl. I read volumes 1 to 13. This is a completed shoujo high school romance series that follows a very petite girl who is very self-conscious about her body compared to her more mature-looking classmates, so she doesn't feel feminine. And because she's so scrawny, boys don't show any interest in her. But then she meets a boy who does start to show an interest in her. The story has a sweet and wholesome feel, but after the first couple volumes, I feel like the entire plot for the rest of the series is only about how they can take their physical intimacy more and more to the next level, which I wasn't crazy about since I am a woman in my 30s, and this is following two 15-year-olds who look even younger in the manga because of the art style. But during all of it, it still kept having innocent and wholesome vibes, which made me feel really weird while I was reading it. So I don't know. I didn't hate the read, but I didn't enjoy it. And unless you're looking for a series about two sweet high schoolers repeatedly looking for places to get intimate together, I wouldn't recommend this one. Descending Stories, I read volumes 1 to 10. Thank you to Suki Notes who put this on my radar when she watched the anime and loved it, and then picked up the manga. This is a josei, slice of life, historical, drama, tragedy series following the life of a man from childhood to old age as he pursues a career in Rakugo. From the intro in volume 1, it seems like the protagonist will be a young man who has just been released from prison, who is also interested in Rakugo. But pretty quickly, the series goes into a long backstory focusing on different characters who I just fell in love with. So when it abruptly cuts back to present day, I wasn't as invested in the younger modern day characters. There are a lot of people in the series being really sleazy, so I did get a lot of ick vibes reading certain parts, and just a lot of really unlikable characters throughout, which made me less invested in how things would turn out for certain people. But the characters I did like, I liked them so much. I really liked the art style, and I liked every section with Rakugo performances. They did such a good job putting emotion into the performances with dramatic facial expressions, and it was easy to tell from the font of the text in the panels during the performances, the speech bubbles that were the stories being told, the text that showed what they were thinking while performing, and then the reactions from the audience. I'm planning to watch the anime because I really want to hear the Rakugo scenes. I am worried that the characters I dislike will irritate me even more in the anime when I hear their voices, but I really want to watch the Rakugo scenes, and I also want to watch the backstory section of the story. I already know it will probably crush me all over again, because just reading that section I cried so much, but overall I did really enjoy this read and would recommend it if traditional Japanese things interest you. Next is Love of Kill. I read volumes 10 and 11 of this drama action josei series. Volume 10 was a reread, and volume 11 was a new release. There are only 2 volumes left. It's already completed in Japan at 13 volumes, so I'm really looking forward to the next 2 releases to see how the series gets wrapped up. I don't want to get into what's going on in these latest volumes to avoid any spoilers, but we are getting more glimpses into backstories, and more information is being revealed about things that were brought up in the first couple volumes of the series. So, waiting eagerly now for volume 12 so I can get some more answers. And A Condition Called Love. I read volume 2 of this shoujo high school romance series. I have already read through volume 10 of this series digitally, so I've been really enjoying reading the physicals as they're releasing. The two main characters are both super sweet and their romance is adorable. The boy has a bit of an obsessive personality, and I'm so excited for the upcoming volumes that get into his past and reveal why he acts the way he does, as well as getting to know some of the side characters better. But I highly recommend this one. It's just a very cute high school romance that gets more and more interesting as it goes. Next is Days. This was another Azuki trial membership read. I read volumes 1 and 2 of this shonen series about soccer, and it's completed at 42 volumes. This is one of my friend's favorite sports series, so I've had it on my TBR for a while, and I finally got around to starting it last month because it was one of the available titles. But in the first 2 volumes, I've only just gotten to know a couple of the main characters, and the premise is being set, so I feel like I need to get deeper into it to meet more of the characters and get to know everyone better to really see what I think of it. I am a little intimidated by the length of the series because I do have a lot of other longer series on my TBR as well, so I'm not sure if I'm going to continue reading this one or watch the anime first, but I love sports series, so I'm excited to get further into this one. And then Sweetness and Lightning. This was another Azuki read. This one is a seinen slice of life series. It's completed at 12 volumes, and I read volume 1. It's about a single father who is a teacher, who is not good at cooking. He and his daughter befriend a lonely teenage girl who turns out to be one of his students, and the three of them start eating meals together. So it seems like it's going to be a very sweet story, but it is very slice of lifey, so I'll need to be in the mood to get back into it. But I know it does have an anime, so I might give the anime a try to see what I think of it. I also read volumes 1 and 2 of Kiss Me at the Stroke of Midnight. This was my last Azuki read. Thanks again, Briar. This one is a shoujo comedy romance series. It is set in high school, but it does have an age gap romance between a high school girl and a young man in his 20s who is a popular actor filming a movie at the high school the girl attends. So in the story, she pretends to not be interested in romance, but actually does want to have a very dramatic fairy tale-like romance. I'm not opposed to age gap romance stories depending on the characters and how the relationship is written, but I honestly am not sure what I think of this one yet. I don't love the main girl character, and while I do like the main guy and find him funny, the vibe is just kind of weird so far. I am planning to read the rest of it sometime in the next couple months because I've heard different opinions on it, and I'd like to see where it goes and the outcome. And the last one, The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity. I read volumes 1 to 7, plus an additional 13 chapters. That will be volume 8 and into volume 9. This is an ongoing shoujo high school romance series that follows a boy from a delinquent-filled public school and a girl from a private all-girls school that caters to wealthy families. And between a few students from each school, we see an odd friend group that forms. The main boy is very tall with blonde hair, piercings. He has a really intimidating presence, but he's a sweetheart who works and lives above his family's cake shop. And then the main girl is a very sweet girl who is honest and bold, isn't annoying. So their blossoming romance is so precious and wholesome. Some parts of the story seem too good to be true because the kids all act maturely and problems and conflicts are actually solved with communication. So I did read a few negative reviews from people who seemed to want more misunderstandings and love rivals, but I really liked the story and the characters and just the approach to conflicts. I feel like it sends a really good message, especially to younger readers who are learning through manga how to deal with misunderstandings and problems in relationships while also being an enjoyable read. So I definitely recommend this one if you want a wholesome, sweet high school romance that is low drama and is really a feel-good story. So those were all my reads from March. I also wanted to share what my tentative April TBR looks like. So Fruits Basket, I'm reading volumes 1 to 23 in a buddy read that Dragon Ball Zoe is hosting. I'm also planning on reading Blank Canvas, which is a favorite of Prof Otaku that I've had on my TBR since he recommended it last year. One Piece, I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to get through in April, but my friend Kat has been wanting to reread it from the beginning, so we're going to buddy read at least a portion of One Piece. I'm also planning to read the new releases I'll be getting in April, as long as they aren't delayed, so Something's Wrong with Us, Volume 14. Really excited for this one. Subakucho Lonely Planet, Volume 3. Rainbow Days, Volume 3. And Tokyo Revengers, Volumes 6 to 10. So I didn't read the 4th omnibus when I got it a few months ago. So I'll be reading the volume before that one, then Omnibus 4, then Omnibus 5 when I get it in the mail. Also, I'm not sure yet, but I might try filming my April reading log in segments as I finish reading things rather than waiting until the end of the month, because I end up getting a little overwhelmed, but we'll see. But this is it for my March reading log and April preview. Let me know in the comments what your March highlight was or what you have on your TBR for April. And I'll see you again in another video. Thanks for watching.